Well, I have a PowerPoint presentation, but I don't know how to put it up there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to talk, and I know you'll have questions, and so we'll kind of have more of a conversation about things. And then any attendees to today, you all registered or to attend this event, so I can share with you the slides afterwards and email all of them to you. So whatever the slides would have looked like, I can send them all to you. But mostly everything I'll talk about. If a tech guy comes in any moment and helps me turn this on, that would be awesome too. But it doesn't matter. And it might be my fillings. I don't know.
Your fillings.
Who knows? So today we're going to talk about the middle stage of Alzheimer's disease and care needs associated with that. So in the middle stages of Alzheimer's disease, gaps in memory and behavior and thinking, that becomes more noticeable. A person may need more help with, how far can I move that? Sorry. Seriously, a person in the middle stages of Alzheimer's disease or another dementia, they may need more help than before with daily activities, with dressing or eating or bathing, something that they, maybe earlier months before, years before, didn't need that kind of assistance. So we'll talk about some of the tools and support that you might need. So some people are already in the middle stage when they receive a diagnosis. And so if you are at the beginning of the Alzheimer's journey, it's important to know that Alzheimer's disease is progressive. And it is degenerative and it is incurable as of now. But it's not a normal part of aging. Symptoms may vary from person to person. So it doesn't follow a straight line as far as the progression. You may see someone in the early stages and some of their behaviors change, or some of their difficulties that they're having, it increases, or some days they're having a real bad day, and then some days they kind of seem like their old self, or they need less assistance. So it doesn't happen in a straight line. It does kind of come and go, and that's why we classify it in early, mid, and late stage, because it can really, you can feel a little bit more early stage. They may seem a little more early stage versus, they overlap each other. So it's more fluid. So as the disease progresses, it affects different regions of the brain. So everybody, everyone progresses differently. And some things you might have seen in the early stages, you're going to see them probably more pronounced during the middle stages. Family members who maybe didn't notice this before, any of these difficulties, family members, friends, neighbors, they may start to really notice the changes in behaviors or the person's needs. A person with dementia in the middle stage may have a lot more difficulty remembering family members' names, or they may get more confused more frequently than they had previously. They might have more trouble handling money or expressing themselves, or even just kind of putting their thoughts together. Hi. So here we see, no. So we have, sorry. So there's an image on the slide, and we'll pull it up and you'll be able to see it. But it is an image of Alzheimer's and how it affects the brain. And so it shows the parts of the brain that are affected, and it starts with the memory center of the brain, and then it spreads throughout. If you watched Kara Dassel's presentation earlier today, she showed a video that was that cool animated video that was hosted or narrated by Niles Crane. I forget what his name is, his real name. And they talk about the way that the disease progresses throughout the brain and what parts are affected as you see it progress. And so that's basically what that picture is. Let me pull it up.
Mm-hmm. Can you do anything with the mic?
Yeah, I keep buzzing.
Or turn it down?
It might be my, I don't know. Every time I move, I whistle.
There you go.
Is that better?
Good. I'll try not to move.
It's kind of weird.
Just go down a little.
I'm a
Everyone in the back.
I'm a wiggler, and I talk with my arms a lot. You know.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, it's great. Okay, now we're getting there. Okay. So as I'm pulling this up, so different parts of the brain are affected. Starting with Alzheimer's disease, we see it starting off with the memory center of the brain, and as it progresses, speaking, communicating, understanding speech, that may also become affected, and eventually it will. Their sense of, as the disease progresses, their spatial sense may be have trouble. So, for instance, if they were to, if there was a pattern on the carpet, they may see it like as a whole, and you may see them kind of shuffle around it or not want to pick up their feet so much to walk because their distance relationship, their vision is starting to become affected that way. Okay, of course I can't do two things at once, I'm sorry. Chew gum and walk, and let me pull it out. Okay. Here we go. Okay, we'll fast forward. I think so, thank you. Okay, so this is the image I was talking about. So here is the brain in the middle stage, or as we look at it. So this is where it begins, and then so those dark parts, that's where what part of the brain is affected as the disease progresses. So in the early stages, very minor change in the brain, not as dark of a color, but then as we get to the middle stage, we see a lot more has those darker spots, and then as we get to the late stage, a lot more of the brain is affected. Okay. So in the middle stage, a person also, you might experience, repeats themselves very often, or they repeat a question, or they may have a hard time understanding the written language or seeing something written down and understanding it. Maybe they have a hard time finding the right words to explain something. So, for example, there was a woman, one of my coworkers used to talk about, was she had lost the word for purse. And so when she was looking for her purse, she'd ask where her bucket was. So she found another word, and with a little bit of guessing and figuring it out, everyone figured out that she was looking for her purse, but she found this similar word in her brain, and it was bucket from then on. So as the disease progresses, it'll be even more challenging to find those words to describe things or to describe your needs or your wants. So as you provide increasing help, try, as a caregiver, you want to help to maintain their self-esteem. Every action that you do, everything that you do with this person or for this person has to be with their own dignity and their respect, in mind. So when you are, if you're in a social situation, don't talk about them as if they're not there or talk for them. In this stage, a lot of the time, something in the early stage into the early mid, it's good to have a conversation with the person with dementia to say, if we come up upon if you forget a word or if you need help with something, how should we approach that? So kind of making a plan in advance versus automatically just saying, forgetting, treating it like they're not there and then answering for them. So including them in those decisions and saying, how should we approach this when it gets, to the point of you need help with finishing a sentence?
I have a question on that.
Yes.
What about when they talk to you about you
Mm-hmm.
and you are not there? In other words, I've had my wife tell me about myself
Mm-hmm.
as though I was somebody else she was talking to,
Mhm.
telling me about myself. Do you understand my
Uh-huh.
question?
I think so.
You ever heard that?
So, well, I mean, and that could happen. It's absolutely a possibility, of course. But so when one thing that it's not recommended to do is to try to correct her and say, "You're talking about me," or "That's me we're talking about," or
I tried that, it didn't.
and so that's something that we want to avoid doing because we want to maintain trust and make them feel comfortable and not feel attacked or ridiculed. And so a good tactic is to say, well, so what did you talk about? Just asking questions, or how were you feeling that made you want to talk about that? Or instead of saying, that's me you're talking about, or trying to reorient them or tell them, this is the right time of day, or this, that person, or anything like that, instead of trying to tell them they're wrong, essentially, you want to, it's helpful to say, so tell me more about that. What did you like about that person? Or what did so-and-so like to do? Or, try just asking questions about that experience, because oftentimes they kind of naturally progress to another thought, or they find their reality. They find their way back to reality in some ways.
So is it good to let them live peacefully in a state of denial? Or should they be aware that there's something going on here?
So
Just let them deny it forever?
So when a person has dementia, even if maybe they don't express it outwardly, they know that there's something going on. And as the disease progresses, they may more and more say there's nothing wrong, because that's not the reality, or that's not their understanding of things. So instead of trying to make sure that they know, or they always understand what's going on, you're trying to ease their anxiety and build trust. So it doesn't, not necessarily like flat out lying to them, or but just understanding and asking them questions about how they're feeling about things, or if they're curious, and they often can find their way in the early and mid stages. They can find their way back to that reality and have a different sense of understanding. So I mean, if that makes any sort of sense. So you don't have to tell them you have dementia. You don't have to constantly remind them about it, because somewhere, especially when they lose that ability to use their words, or they're always going to emote in some way with physical emotions. They may, express it that way. So they may know inside that there's something wrong,
But is it important for them to know that there's something wrong, or should you not go there and just let it go on forever? Because I've had this going on for 2 years.
Yeah.
And I tried to, be very tactful on how I explained these problems to her.
Mm-hmm.
But she lives in a constant state of denial. Like, there's nothing wrong with me. My memory's fine.
Yeah.
I'm the way I've always been, and that's the standard line.
Well, and there's only so much you can do. I mean, with a lot of things, there's only so much you can do, and so much you can force a person to do or understand or whatever. So help supporting them and giving them as much information about things, or, and making that accessible so that they can live as healthy a life as possible, and a supportive life as possible. That's versus saying, trying to always reason with this person, because one thing we learn with dementia is, especially as it progresses, it's very hard to reason with a person with dementia. It's very, very hard. So, and what that does is it causes you stress. And so whatever you can do to alleviate the stress as best as you can for the person you're caring for and for yourself, that's ultimately kind of the best way to have a more productive experience with one another, if that makes sense.
I try to keep everything really positive
Mm-hmm.
and upbeat, but just how far do you lie to these people?
Well, how about can we talk about it after this, and we'll go into more detail or whatever, and I'll give you whatever resources I have. And there's lots of other resources out there too. And then we'll give you a whole toolkit
Okay.
of stuff. And anyone else too, if you have experiences with caregiving, we like I talked about earlier, share whatever tips and tricks you have. We love it. Okay? All right, so see this, we're not going to use this PowerPoint that much, just a little bit. All right, so we're going to move on a little because we're going to run out of time. Okay, so in the middle stages, so we're going to move on to like structure and routine for caregiving. Structure and routine, especially in the middle stages of Alzheimer's disease, that becomes more important. It's helpful to write out a plan. And even in the early stages with their care partner, you can write a plan together of these are some of the things, that way they maintain their confidence of knowing what they have to do day to day. So having kind of written out what are we going to do today, some simple instructions for things. So having a planned day, it allows you to spend less time trying to figure out how to fix something or what to do from moment to moment. So it's nice to have, so if you're not, very organized now, it's a good time to start practicing, because the more organized and more structure you provide as a caregiver for the person with dementia, that the easier things become. It doesn't, of course, make it perfect. Some you'll have worse days than others and better days than others, but having that structure, a person with dementia generally, and in our support groups, that's what we hear over and over, is a change in the structure or the change in the
Routine?
Yes, thank you. A change in routine that turns things upside down sometimes, and it may be hard, and sometimes you have to change that routine. But knowing and having that expectation that something, it may take a little while to readjust. So think of activities as things we do each day, rather than trying to invent a new thing to do for that person. So making dinner for the family, gardening, going for a walk, these are all activities. Laundry, that's an activity. Brushing your teeth, that's an activity. So instead of trying to think of a new fun thing to do or a new fun way to engage this person in the middle stages of Alzheimer's, things you do every day, you can consider those activities, and they are engaging. So break activities into a series of simple tasks. So if the person likes gardening, you can break that activity of gardening into smaller steps. So you can talk together about your gardening plan. You can make a list together about seeds you're going to plant or that you're going to purchase. Buy the seeds, that's another separate activity. Help the person gather their tools and all the things. So everything you do, any activity that you're doing, breaking it up in those little tiny steps, those bite-sized little steps, creates a new activity. So plan activities that will help the person maintain their sense of self and maximize their independent functioning. So play on their strengths, the things that they already know how to do. Did you just raise your hand? Yes?
So, as you said, this is a time when their language problems are increasing. Is it helpful, because this is all language, talking about, is it helpful to make a list, post a list? I sometimes think that some of the things I do with my husband are similar things that I did with my preschooler. And those are things I would have done with a preschooler.
Yeah.
Are those helpful? Are they more confusing?
They're helpful in the earlier part of middle stage. So early stage and middle stage, early parts of middle stage, those things are helpful. But as the disease progresses, understanding those words, that might be more difficult. But every little bit, anything to help them feel and maintain their independence, absolutely. But then as the disease progresses, you have to reevaluate your toolkit. Yes?
You get to the point where letters don't mean anything, words don't mean anything. They can't see the letters to read them, and if they read them, if they sound them out, it doesn't make any sense.
Yep. Yes.
You get to the point where the written word isn't any more effective than the spoken word.
Right.
It's not good communication.
Right. Yeah, and so in that point, it's time to reevaluate and try to, do another, revisit your toolkit, I guess. And so, yeah, and they may have great vision, they have eagle vision, but their ability to decipher what they're seeing because of the dementia, that's another, that's what makes it difficult.
Yeah.
So as that part of the brain is affected, it just changes how everything works.
So they want to go to the eye doctor and get fixed,
Mhm.
and that's not gonna fix anything.
And it
It's
doesn't,
not
yeah, and
right.
right. It's how their brain recognizes that and sees those things. It could also be their eyes, of course, but generally, it's as the dementia progresses. So in this middle stage, caregivers may need to assist a person with personal care tasks. So this is when they may start to have to help out with that a little bit more often. So bathing, brushing teeth, dressing, going to the bathroom, and eating. So this help begins with reminders and progresses to doing tasks with and for the person. So this is where that additional help you'll start to need to help them more often and give them promptings for things. If you want them to go to the bathroom and you want to make sure they make it to the bathroom, instead of you can say things a certain way. You can say, do you have to go to the bathroom? Or you can say it's time to go to the bathroom, or just very matter of fact. Always be clear when you're talking to them versus, so I have a habit of saying, what's their face or this or that, like I'll call that a thing because I'm always somewhere else. So with dementia, when you're caring for someone with dementia, don't do that because you want to, if someone's looking for their purse, you wouldn't say, oh, it's over there. You'd say, your purse is on the chair. So you want to be as clear as you can to be as supportive as you can. Because my husband would even say, like, the what, the where? Like, what are you even saying? He doesn't even. So, use your words. That's what we say. Use your words and speak clearly. And if what you're trying to communicate to them, it's not registering, it's not necessary to try to reword it because that just might confuse things. So try to speak slowly and calmly and clearly. And so with when we train first responders, we say don't rephrase it, just what you were saying. Just say it clearly and slowly and calmly, and so that's helpful. All right, so proper nutrition, so we'll talk about nutrition. It can keep the body strong and healthy, but as a person progresses with dementia, getting to those nutritious meals and eating all that, the healthy stuff, it becomes a little bit more difficult. So mealtime challenges, and have anyone had this experience?
She lives on sugar.
There you go. Yeah, sugar. It tastes so good.
Yes.
So mealtime challenges include becoming overwhelmed with too many food choices, forgetting to eat or thinking they already have eaten, maybe having, not having an appetite or not being interested in food, or forgetting how to eat. So as the disease progresses, so later towards the end of middle, when we're getting closer to the late stage, they may lose the ability to actually eat their food or chew their food, and so that's what you'll have to increasingly support them in. So tips for this: make meal times calm and comfortable. Serve meals as best as you can. Serve meals in a quiet surrounding, away from the TV or other distractions. So that one's a hard one because often the person we're caring for, their favorite place is in front of the TV because there's, that's a lot going on for the brain. But having them in a quiet area, away from those distractions, they may have more of an opportunity to focus kind of on their food and maybe identify some of those cues. Keep the table settings simple with high color contrast to avoid overstimulation and make things easy to see. So you don't need a big elaborate place setting with the shrimp fork in the salad fork and the what other forks and the, because that might be too confusing. So, whatever, if they're eating their food, if it requires a spoon, then maybe a spoon as an option instead, and not necessarily all of the extras, because that might be too confusing. Because what we're trying to do is give them, playing on their strengths for as long as they can, and giving that, their sense of dignity. So if you're having problems during meal times, consider the following. Is it a physical problem? Do they have any sores in their mouth? Poorly fitting dentures, missing dentures? Something that might be making food eating difficult because of pain? Or do they have any other chronic disease and they're taking a medication that might lead to loss of appetite? Maybe look into, so when you're a caregiver, as you maybe noticed by now, you become an investigator, a Sherlock Holmes. And a lot of it is trying to identify these behaviors as it gets more and more difficult for them to tell you what's going on. And so identifying everything around them and saying, what could be causing this outburst? Or why are they pacing, at 2 a.m. all of a sudden? And so that's where you get these skills of identifying, being a detective and saying, what do they have to go to the bathroom? Did they sleep all day and now they're restless and awake, and or do they have to go to the bathroom and they don't have the words to tell us, or are their pants too tight? I mean, there's so many things. So you just kind of go down that checklist as when there's a behavior and that's and you're trying to figure out if they're unhappy or they seem like they're in pain or they're angry, trying to identify those things. So you're the detectives.
I have a really quick question.
Yeah.
Maybe a comment. And I know we could all probably go on for hours on some of these things.
For sure.
Hear what you'd like to say, but I'm here for some very specific things, and you're kind of hitting on some of those things. I'm 12 years into it with my husband, and we're just kind of hitting this end of, I think, the middle stage, from what I'm hearing. And for all these years, I've been doing these things thinking, oh, you're doing a great job of doing this. And now I'm to the point where I'm going, you're sucking at this. I can't figure out any longer a lot of the things I think that I feel like I need to figure out. So sorry. That's okay. I can't help him brush his teeth. I can't help him spit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so silly 'cause it's not that sad. But
It is,
for me,
yeah.
I feel like a little bit of a failure that I can't figure out any longer how to help him spit.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else know how to do that? It's things like that every day that I'm hoping people here would be able to help with. It's like, I did figure out that he can't go to the bathroom because he couldn't do his own pants.
Mhm.
Well, hello, there's pull-up pants.
Yeah.
Well, then that in the pandemic that we could wear sweatpants all the time.
Yeah.
So that helped us through that, and
Mhm.
we did that, but I can't figure out how to brush his teeth. So anybody have?
Well, go ahead.
I take my mother to the dentist every 3 months because she always had bad teeth. She just lost her front tooth. I've been doing all the creamy stuff. She will demand that I feed her another meal, so I've got little teeny cute plates with 1 or 2 things on them. And then during the day, it's like you give her her boiled egg and just deal with it that way. But with the teeth, it's really upsetting because now she's lost her front tooth, and sometimes she goes, oh, thank goodness I've got a mask on. She makes this big face, and then I've talked to the dentist, and my aunt says get her dental implants. You know how painful that would be, and she can't use dentures. So with the mouthwash, I just make her use mouthwash a lot, but I only like the preferred mouthwash, the red water in case she swallows it. No
At
alcohol.
one point, I just thought, I guess it's okay if you swallow toothpaste. It's okay.
You know, the
Yes.
dental hygienist is very good. That's all you can do.
I don't wanna derail, but I have one suggestion for you, because I had the same problem. And it wasn't just brushing teeth, but sometimes she would hold her meds and wouldn't swallow them. And I found that if I bring the garbage can over, she would spit in the garbage can and not in the sink. So you might try it.
Yeah. That's
Try it.
so this. I want to skip forward a little, because when you ask, how some of these specific things, one of the best places that I have seen shared tips and tricks, I feel like I say that word all the time, or those words, tips and tricks, is at support groups. If you haven't been to a support group, go to a support. So we have caregiver support groups all over. We've got some virtual groups, and we're working on getting more in the Salt Lake area, Salt Lake City literal area. But we have Midvale and Sandy. We actually have a support group at the Sandy Senior Center that meets. There's a virtual one and an in-person. And those groups, the groups for caregivers, it is one of the best places where you can get information. You make friends. You share your experiences. You get kind of reaffirmed that you're not alone in this, but your situation is unique. But you get to share and say, "Oh, I'm not the only one who's going through that."
Perfect answer.
And so and don't just go to one. I'm not just saying that. Some have 4 people who attend. Some have 15 people who attend, and it's new information with everyone that you meet. So if you can go, if you have the time, if you can go to more than one support group, go. They're great.
Anything in Midway or Heber?
There's one it's in Orem, Utah County. But we're putting together. So once we went back into in-person, the challenge was finding locations for these support groups, because our office is in Draper, and so people in Logan aren't going to want to go to Draper. I don't want to go to Draper. So that's what we've been working on, is trying to find locations for these in-person support groups. So until then, if there's not one in that immediate area, I would try one of the virtual groups, and we've got 3 of them actually. Kara Dassel, who presented earlier today, she co-facilitates a caregiver support group, and you've seen how smart she is. She knows all sorts of stuff. And she co-facilitates a support group out of the University of Utah, and that's virtual. So at our table, I think I'm pointing in the right direction, we have some information about our current support groups. If we do run out of flyers, I will give whatever information I'm talking about today, I'll share it with Suzette, or share it with all, and then so we can get it all to you, because I know you guys registered. So, and we can, whatever information you need, we're happy to share it. Yes?
I know that, so I participate in an online one with families, Jewish Family Services, and there are a number of people from the Park City area, and they are looking to, when they go back to in-person, try to get something started up in that area.
Yes.
So check out
Park City, yeah.
Yes.
But check out the online ones. They have, like, there's Friday, and there's Tuesday, and there's Monday, and there's lots of different times and days. And you can talk to Rosemary about it, and she can say, well, here's where most of the people who are in the Park City area, this is the one they attend, if you can attend, and then you kind of form a network.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, people, too. Thank you.
Yeah. But support groups are great, and I learn so much from, I know like facts and robot-y stuff, but these are where I learn my tips and tricks that have been helpful to me when caring for one of my family members. And so this is all good stuff, so go to support groups if you can. So we'll move on. Since I think I'm probably running out of time soon, I don't know what time, but I'm going to share other resources with you. And so if you came to the first early stage, we did talk about some of our resources, but I can't emphasize it enough. Our website, alz.org, has so much information about all of the details, all of the stages of the disease, all of the different types of dementia that a person could be affected with. There are resources for caregivers. There are also resources for those living with Alzheimer's or another dementia. Loads of information, links to other, you can find local, where the support group, you can find the listings for our support groups. We also have education, so much education. So I'd say take it in small bites, because it is a lot of information. One thing I didn't talk about at the early stage presentation is we have a online program. It's called Alzheimer's Navigator. And that is it's an awesome resource. So when you're kind of at the beginning of dementia or caregiving, or you're in the mid stage, or you just don't know what you're supposed to be doing next as far as the planning goes, Alzheimer's Navigator, it basically pulls up everything that you need to be doing to be properly prepared, everything you may not, legal and financial and end of life care, and just anything that you didn't even maybe think about. And you can choose one at a time, it creates a customized little action plan for you. And so based on what you know, what your knowledge is and what you need, and you can share it with your family if you want. But it's a really great resource, because a lot of the time we'll get someone who approaches us and says, I wish I knew about this 5 years ago. And so that's what Alzheimer's Navigators hopefully will do, is say, let's get everything taken care of so that there are no surprises, so that you're well prepared. But yes, our online education, you can register and watch as many videos. Yes.
Did you say .com or .org?
.org. Did I say that? .org. And so out, again, at our table, it's the purple one at the end. We have a lot of our handouts that all of those handouts have our website on them and our helpline. And if you didn't hear me talk about the helpline, our helpline is awesome. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They're master's level clinicians who will answer your call, and they can answer anything from a basic disease question to a crisis intervention. They could be the ones that you call to yell at 2 a.m. That's what I tell caregivers. That's what they're trained for. So if you're frustrated and you feel like you're mad all the time and you just want to yell at somebody, but you don't want to yell at the person you're caring for, because that's not nice. You don't want to do that. You call them and you yell at them. That's fine. That's what they're trained to do. But it is an awesome resource, and you can call them anytime, as often as you need. And they also can share tips and tricks. If you're saying, I've tried this and I can't figure it out, they say, how about this? Because they've got real life experience. So our helpline is awesome. Let's see, what is another resource? Does anyone have any questions so far? Yeah, yes.
Sorry.
No.
Take it back there. Are there different kinds, like, do all support groups, like, do they do the same thing as far as the way they interact and people interact with each other?
No, that's one of the.
The only one I went to, it seemed like more of a class
Yeah.
than actually people getting together and sharing
Right.
tips and tricks.
And that's one of the other reasons why it's good to go to multiples if you can. Some of them have the layout of, maybe the group decides in advance, they say, we want to talk about this. And so someone can present and educate. The one in Sandy, they do, it's every other month, they'll have a presenter, excuse me. They'll have a presenter, but then the most other times, they'll present in the first half of it, and then they kind of open it up. Some are more of a kind of a Q&A kind of a session, but generally it's kind of a, you're welcomed, and then if you want to talk, you can talk. If you don't want to talk, you can just sit there and watch, because not everybody's ready to, tear down the door and talk about what issues they might be having. Yeah.
And one more thing now is the Joy Club, where you can bring your loved ones.
Yes. The Joyful Choir, is that one, or the,
It's called the Joy Club.
I don't know.
Nelson, Salt Lake County.
Oh, okay. I'm going to have to talk to her and find out about that.
Yeah, I just found out about it too.
Yeah.
That's one of the things, in-person care group, because they might get a hug. I so much miss humans.
Mm-hmm.
And when you said some place in the city, I went to Midvale, I have to get there.
Yeah.
I need in-person.
Mm-hmm. That interaction,
Yeah.
yep.
I spent 5 hours yesterday getting registered for what our class would do in person. But a human being around me,
Mm-hmm.
besides my mom.
Mm-hmm.
The nice thing with the Joy Club is you can, instead of trying to always make arrangements for that person to be watched over so you can go and do whatever, the Joy Club, you can bring that with you.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah, and some groups, and what we're trying to do now that we're going back into person, we'd like to, and that's maybe similar to what they're doing, it provides respite. Either they can participate, or it's have an activity for the person with dementia while you go to your, while you go to your group. And so it's that respite, and you don't feel, you're not feeling worried about leaving them home alone or anything like that. So there are a lot of different formats of our support groups. So I would absolutely, what I thought you were talking about, it's the Gleeful Choir. They are awesome, and I don't know if they're in person yet. They might be. No.
We're still Zoom.
Yeah. Oh, it's so great. I think it's just, you don't even, music is, that's for another day. We'll talk about it, or they'll talk about it. But yeah, there are so many areas of support, and down that hall where our table is, across from us is Salt Lake County Aging Services, and she's got lots of other information. Their caregiver support services. So, I would say just go have a conversation with that back corner over there, and just kind of take whatever information you need, because that's what we want to support you and make sure that you've got all the support that you need, essentially. So I don't know what time this ends, but I could keep going.
1:47.
It's over?
Yeah, 2 minutes over.
Oh, 2 minutes over, guys. But if you have any questions, feel free to there's a whole bunch of us actually at our booth. And then so the next presentation after this is going to be late stage caregiving, and that's going to be talking about some of the behaviors and some of the things that transitioning care and all that sort of stuff, and that's going to be Wendy will be presenting that. And then tomorrow, tune in, because we're Michelle, who's one of our awesome volunteers, she's going to be presenting on effective communication strategies. So how to communicate with a person with dementia once when they can no longer find the words. So that's a great one. So same bat channel, that whole business. So thank you for being here. Thank you.